Hello everyone, welcome back to a new video. For today's video I am doing the writing process tag. I was inspired by the video that Kelly Ty did of this tag, and so I wanted to do it myself so that you can get to know my writing process a bit more, because I know there's a lot of new people that have subscribed to my channel recently. So this video is for all of you and for me myself, just to talk about my writing process. So if you don't know, I'm Nea, or actually Linnea, which is my Swedish name, but you can call me Linnea, Nea, whatever you want. And I have had this AuthorTube channel for maybe half a year, a little bit more than half a year, but I have had this channel for almost a year, maybe 2 years soon. I used to be a booktube channel, but I have now grown into an AuthorTube channel about writing and my author career. But there's a lot of questions, so let's get right into the tag. The first question is, what genres do you write? The main genre that I write is fantasy, or rather more specifically fantasy romance, because I always tend to put some romance subplots in my books, because I love that combination of fantasy romance or sci-fi with a romance, contemporary romance. I love books that has romance in it because I just love that so much. So fantasy, high fantasy oftentimes, rather than urban fantasy that is set in our world, or low fantasy. High fantasy is my jam, with a little bit of romance. But then I have also been writing recently in the genre of horror. So I wrote a horror novella, and I have a couple of videos out there on this project, so I can link those in one of these corners and also in the description below if you want to watch those. I'm not that comfortable with writing horror because I haven't read that much horror books in my lifetime, but it was a fun writing experiment. So mainly fantasy romance, but I can like dip my toes in other genres like murder mystery, for example. That is part of my second fantasy book in the series that I'm writing. That is very heavy on the murder mystery. So I hope that answers the question. Question number 2 is, what setting gets you the most productive? I'm the most productive in the morning, so the setting is early morning, the sun is rising, the house is quiet. I do not work with music or loud noises or talking. Like I can't focus in a room full of people, like in a cafe or anything. So that's the setting that I can work best in. It just has to be quiet and kind of calm surrounding me, because otherwise my brain gets so distracted by everything that happens around me. Like if I'm listening to music, my brain goes straight into trying to figure out what they're saying or singing in the song. But instrumental music I can listen to while writing, but with words, people talking, doesn't work. Question number 3 is, if you have multiple story ideas, how do you go about picking which one to start on first? I have always just went on the feeling that I am getting from that specific story idea. So if I have, let's say, 3 main story ideas that I have fully fleshed out, maybe not outlined, but I have a full outline in my head of the beginning, the middle, the end, how the story is going to go, the characters that are leading the story forward. If I know all of that in like 3 stories, for example, I usually tend to go with the one that either fits well with my author career, like career-wise. For example, with I'm going to publish my first book, God's Rotten Ruin, which is a standalone series, and if I'm thinking about my career, I may pick up the story idea that is connected to that book that I'm already going to publish, so that I'm working on the series. But if that's not the case, like before I sold a book or contracted a book, I would pick just on feeling, like what am I feeling in the moment, what do I want to write in the moment, maybe what inspires me, like on Pinterest when I go to Pinterest, what is the story that I focus on when I go to Pinterest and looking for pictures and characters, because Pinterest is a big part of my first initial process of writing a book. So when I go to Pinterest, which book idea do I look photos for? Do you get what I mean? It's just feeling, and what idea do I feel like I know best? Because I often tend to gravitate to the stories that I already know very well, the characters that I know very well, because then it's easier for me to write. So that's my answer. Question number 4 is, do you outline? And yes, I do outline. If you have followed me for a long time, you know this about me. I love planning, I love making mood boards, I love outlining, I love outlining my characters, and I have a lot of videos on this topic, so I can link one of them in this corner, or one of these corners, and also in the description below. Question number 5, do you start your first draft with pen and paper, typewriter, or computer? I start my first draft on a computer. I have done this for every single book that I have written. I have not written that many, need to add. Question number 6, what do you do to get through writer's block? I don't know. As for many writers, I get into periods where I don't want to write. I don't really know if I should call this writer's block, because the way I experience writer's block is not the way that I usually hear people talk about it. When I get writer's block, there's nothing, like, I can still write. Even if I don't want to, I can still write. I can push myself to write at least maybe 500 words a day, and if I'm doing that, then I am getting through the writer's block and getting to the point where I'm actually wanting to write again. When I do get the writer's block and don't feel like inspired to write anything, I usually tend to just write anyway. But then a person that has many times gotten me through like writer's block and getting me inspired to write again is Abby Emmons here on YouTube. She's an author and has a YouTube channel for writers, like with tips and tricks. And watching her videos, watching her be so excited about the writing process and her books, it just gets me really excited about writing myself. And another person is Brandon Sanderson. Watching him talk about his process of writing a book, like his lectures that he has on YouTube, watching them always gets me so inspired to write, because he is so excited about his own work and he's so excited about writing. He is a machine when it comes to writing books. He writes them really fast, and I think he has a really fun time writing his books. Being inspired by other writers tend to help me get that inspiration again. And another person, also an author tuber, Lindsay Puckett, watching her videos and watching her talk about her middle grade book, The Glass Witch. You can actually save it to your Goodreads if you want to. Just search for The Glass Witch. I'm really excited about that book, and I am excited for her career, so I want to support her. So if you also want to support her, put The Glass Witch in your Goodreads TBR, want to read. Anyway, I always love watching her videos just because she's genuinely so excited about writing and putting this work out there for children to read, and just it makes me so excited to write my own stuff, watching these kinds of videos and hearing these kinds of people. Of course, there's a lot of people that inspire me. Every single person that I watch and follow on like AuthorTube, they inspire me, and I follow them for a reason. Like, but let me know in the comments how you experience writer's block and what you usually do when you are getting through it. Question 7. Do you format your project from the beginning or worry about that later? I don't know what I do. I don't know what's correct when it comes to like formatting books. I usually tend to have my chapter heading, and I usually tend to have that in a bigger size than, you know, rest of the document, like the text. So I don't know what I should answer on this actually. Question 8. Do you edit as you go or when you're finished with the first draft? I used to tend to just sit down and write, like for my first draft. Just write, worry about the editing later. But with the last story that I wrote, the horror novella, I did edit. When I was done with a chapter that I didn't really feel happy with, I went through it again, I read through it, and I did add stuff or take away stuff. So I did edit as I went, but that's like an exception to the rule, like the norm. But if there is something when I'm writing that I know that I will have to edit later, like if I'm halfway through the story and I know that I will have to change something in the beginning of the story, the main character is going to meet this character earlier, I can write that down on a note and I can save it for the editing later. But I don't go in and edit it at once, but I write a note so that I will not forget it. Question 9. After finishing your draft/manuscript, how long do you give it a break before you start going back over it, or do you give it a break at all? I give it a break. For my first project, I went with the rule of waiting 3 months, and for God's Sort of Ruin, I waited 1.5 months. Like with all the stories that I have an intention of like publishing or sending to the publishers, I have not followed the rule of 3 months at least. So I do give it a break, but it depends on the project and what my plans for it are. Oftentimes more than like a week. Question 10. Is there something that you prefer to do to get through writing? Playing music, TV, having your favorite drink, or food? If I feel kind of fancy, I usually tend to make a cup of tea. Other than that, nothing special. Question 11. Do you schedule your writing sessions? Right now, no. In my digital planner, I do write it down, like for my weekly planners. I want to write at least 500 on this day. I want to write at least 2,000 words in this week, but I don't set aside a specific time for it. So 12. Do you have word count or chapter goals for your writing sessions? Yes, I do. And this can be a problem oftentimes, because if I don't surpass this goal or complete the goal, I'm really hard on myself and I feel kind of like I haven't accomplished anything, even though I have. 13. Are there any quirky things you do to make your projects more fun? I don't know if making mood boards is quirky, but I do make mood boards for characters or for the story itself. And when I wrote Project Full Moon during NaNoWriMo, in November 2021, I did actually find pictures for every session. Like when I was going to write a new chapter or a new scene, I did some Pinterest searches and I found pictures that fit the vibe or the setting of the scene or the feeling that I wanted to capture. Like there was a lot of romance, like pictures of people being in love, or there was a battle picture, or there was a dark forest, you know, pictures like that. So that was kind of a quirky thing that I did, but I don't tend to do that, so that was the exception. 14. Do you work on multiple projects at one time? No, I don't. I have a really hard time switching on and off a certain project, because when I'm in the project, I am fully invested in that story and those characters. They are in my head like all the time. I'm thinking about the next scene, I'm thinking about this character, what that character should say, and you know, I'm thinking about that. I can't really work on 2 projects at the same time, especially like if I'm drafting. Question 15 is, how often do you research what you're writing? I am often researching names. You don't have to have like names be a part of your world building. You can have your characters named whatever you want. But I usually tend to like having that kind of part of my world building. But since I'm running fantasy, I don't really have to research historical events or places or time periods in our world. I can of course be inspired by something that has happened in our world, as I'm inspired by names from a certain region, or the scenery or the setting is inspired by a real place in our world, but I do not tend to research that much. Question 16. How do you organize your projects? On my phone I organize by just putting down ideas, but then I often tend to use Notion when organizing book ideas, and I have a video all about that, and I can link that in one of these corners and also in the description below. But that is usually how I tend to organize my projects. And I have some folders on my computer of like separating the projects and naming the projects different things to keep track of everything. I hope that answers the question. 17. Do you reward or punish yourself for achieving or missing out on your writing goals? I'm really bad at rewarding myself when I'm achieving writing goals, and I could argue that I don't reward myself enough. Like when I finish a new draft, I don't do anything special. I do definitely not punish myself for not achieving a goal, because I think that is kind of unhealthy, and I don't really want to punish myself, because deep down I know that I did my best and that I will be better, like I will do better in the future, or I will have a better day tomorrow writing wise. This was just an off day, so I don't really have to punish myself, and I don't think anyone should punish themselves for maybe not writing anything in a day or in a week or in a month, because there are times when you don't want to write. That's just the way that it works. So no. 18. Are there any works similar to your projects that you look for and use for inspiration and or comparison? Not really. Like, I have always been inspired by Sarah Maas and her books, because she incorporates a lot of romance in her fantasy worlds, even though the fantasy elements are really heavy and that the plot is oftentimes surrounding that fantasy element and, you know, the main character. There's always a side character that, you know, supports a romance. So I have always loved her works, but I don't really compare myself to those books because my books are really different. 19. How early do you wait to start looking for and hiring editors? I have done this one time in my whole writing lifetime, and that was when I was sending my book to the publisher, my Gods of Ruin, that book. And I did hire an editor for that book, but I did that when I had gone through it once myself, and after I had sent it to beta readers, and I edited with the feedback from them. So maybe 2 to 3 times of editing, then I sent the book to the editor. So I hope that answers the question. 20. If you finished a first draft or manuscript, tell us how you felt afterwards. So how did I feel after finishing a first draft? My very first draft, I wrote that in the end of 2020 and the beginning of 2021. I have no plans on publishing this book, but I can't really say how I felt about it after I finished it, because I don't remember. I do believe that I put something up on my Instagram talking about like I have finished my first book, and I was really happy at the time. Like I felt kind of, I did it, like I accomplished this thing that I thought that I would never be able to do. Earlier in my life, I had begun writing projects and I would not finish them. So I guess I was really happy and I was really proud of myself, and that was the feeling. But then when I finished Gods of Ruin, which was my second book, I had a lot of doubts going into that I would not be able to finish a book again, like I would not be able to write another book. So when I finished that, I felt relieved, because I did write another book. I have it in me to write more books, and then also Gods of Ruin is such a heavy book for me. it tackles a lot of things that I have experienced in some way, shape or form. So I felt relieved for finishing a book that I did not think that I would be able to. And I also felt relieved because now I have this story on the page. This story means a lot to me, and I felt really proud of myself again for writing this story, especially because it means so much to me. The last question is tag someone. So it's not really a question, but I oftentimes feel like I don't really want to tag anyone in this because I don't want to put that pressure on someone to actually do the tag. So I'm tagging no one and everyone. If you want to do this tag, feel free to do it, but if you want to do it, tag me and I will see it and I will comment and like and be there to support you, because I like this tag a lot and I feel like you get to know a writer throughout this tag, and I hope that you have gotten to know me a little bit better, and I hope that you enjoyed this video. Leave a like and a comment below and subscribe, because I post a new video every week, every Thursday, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!